Hey, Tanner James, DJ TJ Training. Welcome back to the Peak Period Podcast, episode 17. Episode 17, we have a very cool guest today, DJ F Sharp, Sam Fleming. He is in Canada. He's an awesome DJ from up in Canada, and he has a really cool DJ and entertainment company. You can check it out. Evolved Entertainment, DJ F Sharp. Very, very cool tips coming in this podcast. Very cool tips. If you haven't checked out episode 16 about investing in new gear and selling before you buy, make sure you go check that episode out right after this podcast, because that definitely gives some really, really good insights into investing in gear. But I will catch you at the end of this podcast after you hear Sam and I talk. All right, so we have DJ F Sharp, Sam Fleming here, and he's going to just kind of go over some stuff. We were just talking off air about how many DJs have different ways of getting into the industry and how a lot of DJs can bring different things to the table, and that kind of thing can be really, really cool and beneficial. So we're just going to kind of talk about him, his story, how he got started, and some tips that he may have. So thank you for jumping on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me on, Tanner.
Yeah. So how did you get started? What was your story? How long have you been DJing?
The first time I DJ'd was on air at CKCU in 93.1 FM in Ottawa. When I was 18, I went to Carleton University in our nation's capital here in Canada. And radio at the time, it was the oldest community radio station, so they had the largest record collection, and there were so many records from A to Z in this radio station that they were on train tracks. Mm-hmm. And so I was getting into collecting music and checking it out, and you'd have to put your shoulder in to push the shelves over to get into the Frank Zappa. So it was kind of interesting coming up in that scene. And we'd known that people that had gone before us was Dan Aykroyd from the Blues Brothers, and Saturday Night Live had gone through that radio station. So, when you learn to talk on the mic or program music or entertain people, it could go in so many different directions. Mm-hmm. And that's why I kind of like asking DJs where they started. Mm-hmm. But then when you look at what we do as entertainers, I think especially if you're like DJing weddings or corporate events, what we do really is theater. It's acting, mm-hmm. And so I grew up doing like acting as a child, mm-hmm. doing like musicals in theater and that kind of stuff, and auditioning for commercials, and so all those skills and improv help mm-hmm. later on and being comfortable in front of crowds. Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's really true. So how did you get into the mobile stuff? I guess it was just getting asked. Sometimes we were throwing raves and we had to bring our own sound systems. Mm-hmm. We started renting our big music store, our Sam Ash up here is Long and McQuaid, and they're pretty much the big national mm-hmm. music store. And I started renting from there, and then I ended up working there in the pro audio PA rental department. Mm-hmm. So in Toronto, it was the busy store downtown, so you kind of know where all the parties were. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes people would just come in there and rent. I remember somebody rented like 16 wireless mics off me for Rocky Horror Picture Show. Mm-hmm. And then they said, okay, now you're going to come and operate it tonight. So you get customers, they come in and buy gear, and they want you to be their studio doctor to uh-huh. show them how to use the drum machine or keyboard. And I'd sit there and just read the manual with them. Uh-huh. Then other times you just get asked to go and, you obviously know how to set up these 16 wireless. Uh-huh. So yeah, so you start getting asked to moonlight on the side, and then that would turn into doing live sound and DJing, and then I just started making more money on the Saturdays mm-hmm. than I was there all week. And so, after about 3.5 years, it was like getting paid to go to school working at a music store. But that was 2004 I left, so it's been almost 15 years full time. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of how a lot of DJs get into the mobile stuff. I think a lot of the DJs want to, at first, jump into clubs. I think that's where most DJs want to start. I feel like most DJs aren't the wedding DJs. I think they start in it to go into clubs, and then it's kind of slowly but surely they start moving away and going into mobile stuff. Or they stay in the clubs. But I think the ones that end up mobile, I think they kind of start veering off and move into the mobile stuff. Which is kind of a different beast. It's just different. Some of it's the same, some of it's a lot different. So, like you were saying. I haven't seen many. I haven't seen many people go opposite, that they start with weddings and they get more into
Right,
club.
right.
Some do though. Some like start as like a helper with an older DJ. Maybe get into. A lot of people seem to start with high school dances and DJ in their own high school or young parties, and then as they mature, it's more clubs, and then as they get all their friends are marrying age, they start getting asked. They weren't even thinking about it.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's true. You start in the clubs, you kind of start doing that stuff. Your friends come, and then they go and they start getting married, and it's like, hey, you were a good DJ at that club. Can you DJ our wedding? And then you're like, well, you don't want to say no, so you're like, yeah, of course. And you get pulled into it. Yeah.
Sometimes you find out what you want to do by saying, "Oh, I never want to do that again."
Right. That's pretty true.
Like I travel everywhere once and the good places twice.
Yeah. That's funny.
Like we did a mitzvah this year. I've seen 100 as a technician, but I've probably only done about 15, and I'm like, this is not my market. I'm now a 42-year-old man and playing essentially what I would consider top 40 music. Some of it's basically like stripper music for 13-year-olds.
Right.
Not really. Right. It's not really. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
For what kind of event was that? Did you say it was mitzvah?
A mitzvah.
Yeah.
And the kids are sometimes demanding stuff that isn't actually a song. It's like a YouTube meme or something. So it's not anything that you can download at any quality anywhere.
Right.
But that doesn't stop them from like wanting it.
Oh, yesterday. Right. No, and I think you just brought up a huge important point. If you, as DJs, you need to find out what you like to do and what you're good at, and put those together, find what they are, because you may be good at something, but you may not want to do it. But if you find out what you like and find out what you're good at, if it's the same thing, and then you need to like specialize in that. And so maybe you specialize in Sweet 16s, but you do awesome Sweet 16s, and there's a market in your area that will actually pay for an awesome Sweet 16 DJ, then that's really, really good. And I think that's really important. But I think what happens a lot is DJs never figure out what they want to do and what they're good at. And so then they just kind of do everything. And when you do everything, you're never really good at any. It's like the jack of all trades, master of none, right? So that's not what you want to do as a DJ, because if you aren't good at it and you aren't doing awesome stuff, you aren't, I don't know what the right word is, but you're not being great at something.
You're not carving your niche.
Right. You need to find your niche. And I don't play Mexican music ever. Like, I just don't do it. Sadie?
Because you don't speak Spanish?
Well, yeah. And well, that's part of it. The other part of it is truthfully, I wasn't brought up around it.
Yeah.
It wasn't played when I was a kid. I don't know the difference between all the different genres.
There's like 42 Latin countries. So like each one's got like dozens of different variations of salsa and merengue.
And so I will never do a quinceañera or any kind of event where they request Mexican music. Any kind, because I have like 10 songs, right, that are my go-to. So if somebody comes up and says, hey, can you play this song? I can play it. The issue is I'm not doing full events for 4 hours, 3 hours with Mexican music because I don't know it. And so that's a decision that I've made. And I know from other DJs that there is money in those kinds of events, in quinceañeras. The issue is if I go there and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to play a song and I don't I don't know if that song's going to actually work. And I don't know what this song is and if this song is a good one, or if this one really is good, or this one's good but it doesn't work with this crowd, or I don't know that. And for me to go through and figure it out will take so much time. I don't want to do it, you know? Like
that's what's interesting with DJing in Toronto, is that it's really multicultural here and very mixed. And so you can play weddings with different cultures every weekend. And as long as the couple is kind of worldly and they don't really have to appeal fully to their family only hearing Spanish music or only hearing Ukrainian or whatever. It's kind of fun that I think out of 140 languages, I've easily done half of them. And I enjoy that. I enjoy learning about them. But when it's in a language that I like, French and Spanish and some Latin languages, I know what the song's about.
Right.
But when it's in a language or an alphabet that I don't understand, for me, I want to make sure that I'm on brand. So
Totally.
if I'm doing a romantic event, I want to make sure I'm not playing a song about politics or heartbreak
Right.
or threesomes.
Right. Right. No, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know what is like good, and I don't know what's bad and what to play, and um I can get through an event if they're like, hey, we want to hear some of this music. I have some pre-made mixes that I can put on, but I do not take events where it is like that because it's just not my, I don't know, I don't know. I say I'm not fluent in it, and it's kind of like if you DJ EDM music, don't go and DJ a top 40 wedding if you don't know the
Yeah.
top 40 music, right?
Well, I came out of the club scene in Toronto in the 90s when I was playing hip hop
Uh-huh.
or house music, stuff like that, or even reggae.
Uh-huh.
And if you didn't know your music and you couldn't get the crowd going, or you couldn't beat match on vinyl, they'd throw drinks at you, they'd throw bottles at you. So you like there was this idea of shame, and that you'd call yourself a bedroom DJ for a couple of years until you knew that you were tight, and you'd recorded your mixes, and you go, that's actually okay. I had a great mix. I'm ready to go do it in public. But now people just get up in front with no shame at all,
Right.
and just think they can just hit spacebar and nothing's gonna happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it depends, like what I said, what you're good at and what you like, because you may be good at this, but you don't like it. You're not gonna give off the right effect that you want to. You want to give off a vibe that people are like, okay, he likes this music and he's good. We like him. Versus he doesn't seem like he's having a good time, but he plays good music. Like you want the whole effect, and I think that's super important.
Like French and Spanish, I know enough that I could, when I hear the song, I'll know what the lyrics, and I might learn a few new words in the song that I have, like corazon, like obviously isn't so much Latin music. I know what they're talking about, so I can sing along, and it's still meaningful for me. But for other music, like I did a couple Serbian weddings recently, and because I'd already done a few, I actually had a bit of a Serbian music library, and I'll write in the comments section, oh, this is like a joke song. It's like funny about pals that are traveling and they come home, and so I know the context of what the song is, and it kind of gives you an idea of when you would play it in a night, or if it's romantic or a fight song. Well, if it's about fighting, I don't,
right.
You want to avoid stuff that's
or a breakup song.
A breakup song,
right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So I mean, and I think I made that mistake for a long time. I was doing every kind of event that I could. Any kind of event that would hire me, that wanted me, that would pay me, I'm doing it. And, over time you start realizing that may just not be the best thing. Have you read that book, Booked Solid, I think that's what it's called.
I've seen that it exists. I haven't had a go with it yet, but
it was pretty good. I liked it a lot, and I don't know who Book Yourself Solid. I don't know who referred it to me, but
Solid. Yeah.
I listened to it and I'm like, wow, that's really, really good. And one of the things that he says is find out what you're good at, and specialize in it, because you don't
right. Because you want to find people that aren't like, I need a DJ. They're like, I want TJ.
Right.
If they're just looking for a DJ, then that's okay. We could find something for them, but I want them to be like, I want Sam Fleming, or I want Evolved Entertainment. That's kind of what you're going for.
That is exactly what you want. The issue is, how do you do that, right? Because a lot of DJs haven't gotten to that point. And I think there's a few things that you do. I think one of the big things is branding, figuring out what your brand represents, having good events, making sure that your events are all fun and good, so that, if this guest from a wedding, it was at a wedding that you were just at, they're like, okay, he was a ton of fun, we need to have him, we'll change our wedding date to make sure that you're there.
Right.
And
I think coming up through the club scene, like I used to promote and throw my own parties, because to get in and do an hour or two at somebody else's event, I'd always get like an opening or a closing slot, or not to a busy room, and so you wouldn't get the best experience, and then you wouldn't control the context in which you played. So I used to throw more parties with beatboxers and bands and all this multimedia stuff going on, because I wanted this big fabulous thing, and then obviously have more of the headlining kind of slot at my events. And it took a while to build up to be able to do a special or event or a wedding where you're routinely playing like 4 to 10, 12 hours sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, I think you just got to pay your dues too, that you've got to maybe start with smaller gigs where you're not on stage as long and you can keep your energy high, and then work up to bigger events where you can be worth a lot more than what you get in the club.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And okay, here, kind of switching topics, but still on that topic. When DJs are starting out, do you think here's an issue that I see a lot. There are a lot of DJs who start out and they get influenced by DJs who have a success, maybe not a super successful business, but have kind of a footprint. And what they say is like, you shouldn't go out for events for a certain price, or you shouldn't go out and charge less than this,
Right.
or else you're gonna pull down the industry because of you
Yeah.
trying to find experience. What do you think
And
about that?
Well, Mark Farrow was the big one that started that with his Getting What You're Worth tapes that you can still get. I think it's Marbecca Method, and that's the guy I'm going back to train with again. And he was trying to raise not tell people what to charge at all, but he's just like, did it $1,200 US back in 2000. If you're gonna go and take a couple speakers, wireless mic, and do the full, like, really put your heart into it and be there for people, how could you be worth less than $1,200? And what I say to people now in Canada is that our weddings in Canada, weddings are a great example of like the amount of production that goes into a show, because like a mitzvah is usually double the budget of a wedding. So in Canada, it's usually about $30,000 Canadian for 140 people at a basic banquet hall for an 8-hour show, like ceremony, cocktails, dinner, dancing. We do a bit of a longer thing where we're kind of here with them for the whole night, so we get them married and do the whole thing usually. And then it's 40 grand in Toronto and 50 grand in Vancouver. So what I say to people is, if you think about what you're doing, if you're really there for the whole thing and you do ceremony, cocktails, dinner, dancing, or even if you're just doing 2 or 3 of those 4 elements, how could you be less than 10% of the success of the party and subsequently 10% of the budget of the event? So the DJ should be getting 3, 4, 5 grand for an average show, just basic sound, maybe a little bit of lighting, and a solid performance with the consultation needed to make it a success. Yeah.
I think what happens. Okay, I'll tell you the story. You'll like it. I was starting out, and this DJ said to me, I didn't really have like too many mentors when I started. I really didn't have any, but he kind of like took a liking to me, and so I went and I helped him out. It was at a public event, so it wasn't like super one-on-one, but he was kind of saying like, you shouldn't go out for less than, I don't even remember what he said, but it was some, looking back, it's really, really cheap. But when I was starting out, that was a ton of money to me. And I didn't have any experience. And I had
I was there too, man. I've
Right.
been that guy.
And I had 2 of probably the worst speakers that you could buy now, super cheap. Super bad. All my equipment, it was basic, right? You're getting into the industry. You don't have the super nice gear yet.
Right.
And so he was telling me, you shouldn't do this. You're not worth this much, And I'm like, okay, but that is my worth right now. That's all I'm worth, because I'm not worth anything more. I have no experience. I don't have even nice gear. I can't even sell my gear. Like, what do I do?
Well, people don't care about the gear. And a guy like Mark would say, even a junior guy, if you're showing up there, you got to be worth $1,200, because an AV company at any hotel in the U.S. is going to be charging you $700, $800, $900 just for a pair of speakers and a mic. And what I'm trying to talk to other DJs about is, if you look at the word, like the term mobile DJ, well, we know what the DJ part is, but let's look at mobile. What does that really mean? Well, mobile means that you're moving. Well, what's a company that stays in business that does moving? Is a moving company. Well, ask any moving company, get a quote. What's the smallest job? Oh, well, we don't put two. So Tippett Richardson's a big company here in the city, and my brother-in-law worked for them. And he told me that their basic pricing for basic small moves is 3 guys. They never get just 2, because 3 you can get a parking ticket and hurt yourself. It's too risky to do a 2. So it's a 3-person move, even a small minivan or panel van, and it's $100 an hour, 4-hour minimum, plus trucking and if it takes longer than 4 hours, then that's more time, right? But that's just one way. So then you got to come back at 2 or 3 in the morning, maybe on a cold, snowy night, and it's $1,000 worth of labor just to move,
Mm-hmm.
you know, two tops, subs, DJ gear, maybe a bit of lighting, and like, so the moving alone should be
Mm-hmm.
worth a grand Canadian,
Uh-huh.
and then the rental of the gear. Usually, most rental houses they'll rent it out at 5 to 10% of its value. So if
Mm-hmm.
it's 10-20 grand worth of gear, it should be like 500 to
Mm-hmm.
$2,000 to rent. And one thing I learned from piano players is that they know a grand piano, to move it and to tune it, is usually about $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they play all night or play one song, they can't be worth less than the
Mm-hmm.
lackeys that move it.
Right,
So
right.
that one song or the all night's got to be at least $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
And I think DJs got to realize that their performance should be worth more, unless they're buying their resume, and that they have to get so many, you know, that you're coming up, and I don't want to charge too much because
Right. And
I don't have the
I don't
self-esteem.
have a problem with that. I don't think that's wrong. That's what I did. I mean, I was starting out. I didn't have any experience. I didn't even have anybody to go like watch and shadow and say like, oh, look at you know, I'm just trying to get out there, trying to work, trying to. I learned a lot from the internet, but I'm still trying to learn and grow and figure this out. I wasn't worth any kind of decent wage, you know? And so it was more like risky on the person hiring me to say, yeah, let's book him and take a risk on me, right? So but I think what happens is these DJs who aren't working every weekend, they maybe work once every 2 months, go to the beginning DJs and say, you shouldn't charge blank, you need to charge this much. And it's like, and then that DJ gets it in his head.
Like charging less? You're not allowed to charge that high or something?
No, you're not charging enough.
Right. Okay.
You're charging 1,000. You should be charging 4,000 or whatever it is. You know, I don't know what the conversion rate is for me to you, but that kind of thing. You're charging X amount. You're charging $100. You should be charging 400 at least minimum. And it's like, but that guy doesn't have any experience. He just needs to get out there. He needs to start moving. He needs to get experience, get the pictures, get reviews, that kind of thing. Now, how long should that go? That shouldn't last more than a year. Max. I mean, once you start getting the experience, that's where it should
there's
stop.
no rules. Like it's hard starting at a higher price,
Mm-hmm.
and starting it, but it's also really hard starting at the bottom and working your way up.
Uh-huh.
And I find with sales and anything you do in terms of like naming your price for naming art, it's always better to start at a higher price and be able to bring it down, and then they see your value. But if you start at a lower price, you're not really going to get referrals or reviews, because people appreciate when something costs more. So if you have a coat that's worth $1,000 versus a coat that's worth $100, which one are you going to tell your friends about more? Which one are you going to get more compliments on, right? Like you'll take better care of that $1,000 coat than you would $100 coat. Same with a DJ. Like if you're hiring a DJ and you paid a lot of money for that DJ, well, like you're going to make sure that he's got a private little room to get changed, and he's got his meal wherever.
So then how does that $1,000, let's say, DJ get work if he doesn't have any experience?
Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know. I got a lot of experience just working for other DJ companies, and I now have the attitude that every DJ, if they're getting booked repeatedly, they're doing something right.
So I'm totally with you about the price thing. Yeah.
Like all I'm trying to say is, like, even the worst DJ is doing something right. So DJs can always learn from one another, but we got to be really careful that we're taking the one or two things that DJ, even though they may not be as good as you or the average person, they're still doing something right, and they might actually be better at something that you're weak at. So you got to be very careful to learn from other DJs, but don't just absorb all these bad habits that other DJs have. That, you know, like it's like the blind leading the blind, right? If DJs aren't really making a living from it, and most of us are hobbyists or part-timers, and we're all teaching one another how to do it, it's very much the blind leading the blind.
Right, totally. Yeah, and I'm with you about when you spend more money on something, you tend to appreciate it, take better care of it. I heard this story of this guy. He was he's like a really big entrepreneur now, but he was in college, and his one of his teachers said, "Hey, I want you to read this book," and he was like, "Okay, sounds good." And he took the book, and the teacher said, "Okay, let me see your wallet." And he's like, "My wallet." So he pulls it out, and he pulled out all of his $50 in his wallet. And the teacher was like, or the entrepreneur was like, "Why'd you do that?" And he's like, "Well, because if you didn't pay me, you wouldn't invest any time into reading this book. You aren't going to care about reading this book if you don't have anything at stake, which would be his money. And so I totally understand that when you don't invest in something, you aren't invested in it. So it's like if it goes down, who cares, right? So when you spend more money on a DJ, you tend to care more about your wedding and you want it to be much more successful.
Yeah, same like if you were in a legal pickle and you asked a cheap lawyer and an expensive lawyer, they could both tell you the same thing, but which one are you going to listen to?
Right. Yeah.
The one that you gave up more to get their time and their advice.
Uh-huh.
They could end up saying different things or the same thing, but you're going to put more stock in the one that you paid for.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I found when I started charging more money, it's not about being greedy, because even though I'm getting double or triple what some other DJs do, I'm still just scraping by, because yes, I charge more money, but then I put more love into it. I do more meetings, more site surveys, more event planner type stuff that's like taking full responsibility, as opposed to I hope it goes well.
Right. Yeah,
but I think, just sorry to finish that thought, was that when I started charging more decent rates, like even what a wedding planner would charge, a lot of the problems that a lot of DJs keep minging about on online, on information sharing and all this stuff, all these consistent problems that keep coming up, they just kind of all melted away. Like, when I ask for something, it's there. When I need something, it's done. Like, you actually are treated like an expert because you're getting paid like an expert.
Right.
And if we want to be professionals and turn this into an industry, we've got to look at, what does a lawyer do? What does a judge do? What does a police officer? What don't they do? They dress professionally. They don't swear. They don't drink on the job. They don't make passes at girls. They don't.
Right. That's funny that you say that, because I have videos and a blog post about this exact thing. How do you charge more? How do you get your worth? What people say. How do you do that? And I say, look at some of the highest paid professions, and I chose doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Right. 3 of the highest paid professions. None of them drink at events.
No.
You don't walk into a lawyer's office and he's cracking a beer or having some wine to give to you. That doesn't happen. Or, the engineer drinking on the job. That doesn't happen. So you shouldn't be drinking at events. If you feel like you're not being paid the proper amount, that you should be paid more, what are you doing that these people aren't? They're super professional.
Some people stay in the industry because they can, or they don't charge so much so that they can drink on the job. And I think a lot of people don't charge more because they don't want more responsibility, or they don't perceive that they will be asked to be fully responsible for the event, because you're just a DJ and you're only just doing it for $500, and it's like, but people don't see your price tag on your forehead when you're performing. They just see your performance.
Right.
And whether you do it for free or $1 million, the outcome of the event is 100% on your shoulders. So you've got the responsibility, whether you perceive that or not.
Totally.
The crowd doesn't see a number up there dancing on stage.
That's a good point, because we may see, one thing with me that I always really care about is how the event looks to these guests. If something is going on in the background, the guests may not know about it. They probably don't know about it. So that's good. But if something's going on and it's not my fault at all, it could look like it's my fault, right? So I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure that when people look at the event, it's all great, instead of, it looks like the DJ is kind of doing something, or the DJ's not paying attention, or, because the whole event is on your shoulders.
Do you do your events solo?
It depends. Some are solo, some are multi-op. So generally, I'll do them all solo, and then besides the guys going out and doing other events.
Because that was the big thing for me, was I had a hard time getting much over $1,000 doing it all myself. But then when I started having a driver, an audio technician, or a DJ assistant there, then I started getting up to 15 and getting up to $2,000, and I couldn't get over 2. And then I started putting the third person on the show, so that I'd have like another DJ or MC with me, to kind of do a 2-person thing. And then I'm chained to the turntables.
Right.
Because they're buying for me, so they don't actually need me to DJ every song.
Mm-hmm.
They just need me to be there to take care of it.
Right.
And so then I started to get up to $3,000 with 3 people on the show. So I'm like, hell, let's put a 4th person on the show.
Yeah.
And start putting sax and other performance. So I'm trying to. Sometimes I've got 5 or 6 people on a show now, and we're starting to get up to $5,000 or $6,000 for some of our shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then have a crew that does all the setup for me, so that I'm, as the owner of the company, I shouldn't be there slogging it out, lifting gear out, because if I hurt myself, then the whole company will go down.
Right.
As well as my performance for the night. So try to separate that a little bit more, and like any entrepreneur, you focus on the things that you're good at and you delegate out weaknesses. And I've done that, and the price has gone up, but now the profitability isn't there.
Right.
So today I went and picked up one of those Evolve 50 systems, because it's just a smaller, more compact thing that I don't necessarily need to have a driver come and move for me. So I, just to keep it a bit more lean on the shows that don't have the highest budget, I can still go in there, not have to pay a technician $300-400 for the night.
Yeah, totally.
Which might be the healthy part of my profit margin at the end.
Right.
Of it,
right. All right. So wrapping up here, what advice, maybe 1 or 2 tips, would you give DJs who want to get some more events, want to grow, that kind of stuff, charge more? What would you say to them?
I'd say join your association or find out what other associations are around. I did WPIC, which here in Canada is the Wedding Planner Institute of Canada, and they actually do have set pricing for wedding planning for each province and the standard of living in each city across Canada. So that was kind of an eye-opener of that. They just said if you're doing month planning or full planning, there's no way that you're going to put in less than 20 hours or 40 hours. And as an entrepreneur, you got to charge at least $20-25 an hour just to make minimum wage after your overhead. So different associations, they don't call it ISIS anymore. It's ILEA is another one. I haven't joined that, but a lot of people have got stuff out of that. In Canada here we have CPDGA. You've got ADGA in America. In the UK and Australia, there's other associations, and we're starting to talk to one another to help. So through the association, I met guys like Dave Tournier, who put me on to Mark Farrell and others that have. You want to find people who have maybe been doing it longer and that are making more money than you, telling you that you can do whatever you want to do with it. You don't want to listen to other people that are saying that you can't charge that much or you can't do that much. So the DJ associations are great. We have video chats now that go coast to coast. And what I find when you're not, like in your region, you might actually we get a lot of work from other DJs because we're helpful with other DJs. When they're booked, they just send us their work because we help them out with stuff. But in terms of sharing ideas, there's a certain level of professionalism in the association where people will really share their businesses when they know that they can't compete geographically. So I've grown so much through them, and it's the closest thing I've found to a university. And then through there, I've found all the different DJ conferences. And I've had a chance to speak at CDJ show in Toronto twice, and Midwest DJs Live is one coming up in Milwaukee. I went to Las Vegas DJ show and Wedding MBA, so I've got a lot out of those. So take a risk, invest in yourself, and go to a conference, because that's where you're going to meet people that they've invested and risked in themselves too. I think a DJ, really, you're an artist. And if you look, DJs is just a subsect of the arts. And an artist, if you're just doing it in your hometown from the safety of your mom's basement, you haven't really taken any risks. But when you start traveling to other cities, you know what I mean? And you start traveling, it's like, oh, strange traveler from faraway land, tell me about your journeys, That's, an artist is supposed to be on route somewhere and traveling. And if you're just doing the same thing, it's safe and easy, and you don't have to challenge yourself. I don't know. You gotta swim out in the water where your feet don't touch.
Right. I love it. Yeah, invest in yourself. That's the best investment you can make. You can't sell your gear to clients. It won't work. So if you invest in yourself and you get something out of it, that is where it works. Sam, where can people find out more about you? Where can they follow you on social media?
Oh, Evolved Entertainment is our company, so it's Evolved with a D. And on Twitter and Instagram, it's at EvolvedEnt. And same again for myself, it's at DJ F Sharp, DJ EFSHARP. And you can just Google Sam Fleming, DJ. I'm sure it'll come up for something. And I'll be at Mobile Beat in March, in the middle of March there. And yeah, I'm up here in Toronto, Canada. So if you guys are around or want to have any advice or need to talk, get in touch. I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. Thanks again for jumping on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tanner.
There we go. So that was Sam Fleming, DJ F Sharp from Canada. DJ F Sharp from Canada. His DJ company is Evolved Entertainment, so make sure you go check him out. Follow him, send him a DM, tell him you heard about him from Tanner James, DJ TJ Training, the Peak Period podcast. We are back next Thursday with another pretty cool podcast, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or you can stream it on our website, djtjtraining.com. Make sure you like our Facebook page, DJ TJ Training, and I will catch you guys next week.